So we'll go on to another tweet that talks more about persuasion. And this is another tweet. So in this time period of March 2019, and even now, I have taken an approach with these named tweets. They're usually a little higher concept than some of the other tweets that I have. They're a little bit conceptual art, but they try to make a point as well in that framework. And sometimes I actually made two versions of the same general tweet with the wording changed and the title changed. So we're going to read these two right here. They're called All Bases Loaded, All Bases Loaded, and Big League Chew. You know what I haven't had in a while? Big League Chew. So there's some Family Guy for you. Okay, so we'll start with the first tweet here. Big League Chew. In the free market of ideas, having a refined persuasion game is a clear advantage. A knowledge of when to throw a curve, drop a bunt, walk the other team, or swing for the fences. Study persuasion if you'd like to be a pitching ace, or at least somewhere in the ballpark. The sister tweet to this is called All Bases Loaded, and I consider All Bases Loaded to be the refined version of Big League Chew. All Bases Loaded. In the free market of ideas, having a refined persuasion game is a clear advantage. A knowledge of when to drop a bunt, throw a curve, walk another team, or swing for the fences. Study persuasion if you'd like to be a pitching ace or somewhere in the ballpark. So, once again, not a persuasion expert. I am learning every day. I'm an acolyte of those that have come before me. I actually watch Scott Adams, who wrote a book called Win Bigly, which described a lot of different persuasion techniques, including those that President Donald Trump used in part to help win the 2016 U.S. presidential election. And there's other people that I could list as well, Gialdini and so many others. In fact, I have a friend, X808. He's on Twitter, X808Beats on Twitter. And he actually has a pinned tweet at the top of his profile called the Master Persuader List. Some people call them wizards. Some people call them persuaders. Again, we're going to talk about persuasion just a little tiny bit here and talk about how framing matters, using different words matters. But he, X808, threw together this list, and it's got some excellent people on there: Dale Carnegie, Steve Jobs, so on and so forth. Dozens of names, really. And this is a good starting point, so if you're interested in the topic of persuasion, check out his list. And you actually can look on Google or DuckDuckGo as well and find lists of people that know persuasion. And from there you can kind of study different styles and get some tips and tricks. But we'll go into a little bit of why I think persuasion is an important skill to add to, as Scott Adams would say, your skill stack. It's like part of your talent stack, I guess you could say. I know there's stacks in the world of programming as well. I'm not a programmer. I'm more of an advocate, I guess, of the... I'm not an engineer. I'm more of an advocate and an artist. But persuasion is incredibly important to not only, professional, personal, philosophical, political. It really has an application in virtually all aspects of our life. And I find that those that don't seem to study it, don't seem to understand that there is a system, persuasion, there's an art form, there's a science to persuasion. When they're discussing things online, like politics, they don't see that layer. It's a good filter. I think Scott calls it the persuasion filter, that he puts over situations, and it can kind of help you develop a more predictive sense of what's going to happen. So persuasion, again, people will talk about it in what it is, in terms of choosing the right words and formatting how you're communicating, framing how you're communicating with people, and it can go for, again, all kinds of fields, such as sales. People talk about persuasion in sales because you're trying to get people to do something. So that also brings up the other thing I wanted to say about persuasion, because everybody seems to, whenever I say, oh, I like persuasion, I'm studying it, I'm trying to get better at my persuasion, I'm trying to level it up, I'm trying to buff it, like almost like you're playing an RPG and getting better at the conversation paths. And if you play like Knights of the Old Republic from way back in 2003, or Mass Effect, or any of these, you can get your linguistic skills up, and then that's kind of, charisma, persuasion. And there are lots of people that use it for different purposes. We talk about the My Pillow guy. I don't remember his name, but I guess he's running against Ilhan Omar in Minnesota for her seat. But he has this way of communicating. It's almost like you could almost file it away if you were looking at it in a professional context. You could almost file it away as like a people skill, like getting better at it. But people always do bring this up to me. They say, so you want to persuade people. You want to manipulate them. You want to manipulate people. And I say, well, hold on a second there. Persuasion can be for positive reasons, or it can be for negative reasons. I always say that persuasion and manipulation are a two-sided coin. You have persuasion and manipulation. You don't want to manipulate people, but you want to win them over. You want to sell them something. May it be a product, as in the case of most sales, or an idea. So if you're a philosopher, if you're a political pundit, if you're somebody that's on Twitter and trying to make a name for yourself, giving political opinions and philosophical positions on things, having a good persuasion game will really level you up. I say study it. I'm just trying to study it every day. I don't expect to ever be a true expert. Even the greats are learning something new every day. But I think that it's a valuable and underrated skill, because I never really thought about this until a couple of years ago. And learning all the different techniques of how to win people over, how to pace and lead and get people to think the way that you'd like them to think in the pursuit of that goal, to make them use their imagination, give them a choice, and let them, make their own decisions. Of course, it taps into our human agency, but also if you have two people selling the same idea or the same product, two people, one of them knows persuasion and one of them doesn't. Well, the person that knows persuasion has a better way to present positive options. I think that the think positive movement is a large part of this as well. You don't want to make people feel bad unless you're trying to scare them into choosing something else or choosing something specific. You want them to feel good about their choice. You want them to have a choice. So I think choice actually is a very important part of persuasion myself, where you're not forcing something down somebody's throat. You're slowly but surely persuading them to your, it might be an ideological goal. You might be trying to sell something. But people, you want people to start to think past the sale. You want them to imagine. You want to create images in people's heads. That's a large part of persuasion. I'm kind of spitballing here. Like I said, I'm not really an expert, but as I think of things, I tell you on camera. Creating an image in somebody's head. And really what persuasion is about for me, what I see largely as the mechanism, the science of it, is just learning how to frame things better. Not to frame them in a way that's like duplicitous or trying to hide things, but just framing them better, helping people think better about a specific topic. It can it can have extremely positive benefits, extremely positive effects, I should say, on people when persuasion is used for something that benefits them. So it shouldn't be seen as like just manipulating people to use them, to sell them something, but also to help them learn and understand their own ability. In fact, that's why I talk about persuasion. I talk about it partially because I think that, when you don't know about persuasion, when you don't have this filter, when you aren't aware of these systems and how humans interact, and it's essentially a science. It's very predictive. If you're not aware of that, you're at a disadvantage. Like, when you're trying to discuss politics, we talk about all the political stuff on this channel here. There's this level of awareness that I didn't have before for many years, and I'm still working on it. I don't feel like I'm quite there yet, and it's really hard to get there. But again, without persuasion, without understanding how this works, what makes people move, and just looking at it as bluntly, the issues. Well, the issues are one part of the argument. The issues are, in a sense, your logos. You actually want to get physical, malleable things done in politics. But politics is largely a post-truth realm, which what I mean to say is that it's a linguistic realm. There's a lot of, people say politicians lie, or politicians frame things a certain way. The words you use, the order, a news article puts their paragraphs, everything is a form of persuasion. So we all kind of know a little bit about persuasion from the outset, but when you look at it as an art form, when you look at it as a technique for improving your communication skills and helping make yourself more charismatic, and there's so many different benefits you can get, and also being less, let's be honest, of a sucker. You don't want to be at the mercy of people that are great master persuaders, or wizards, as some people call them. I think Owen Benjamin calls them wizards, among many others. You want to be in the game. You want to understand the nature of what's going on, and understand this system. So I do recommend studying persuasion. Definitely, I hope to inspire a few people to check out a book or two, or just read about it. Read about the techniques of persuasion. I try to study it as much as possible, and I figure it'll be a positive thing here to help get you on board that as well. Because in the free market of ideas, having a refined persuasion game is a clear advantage. So many ideas, so many people trying to persuade you and I across the board, and having a better persuasion game will bring people in. They'll feel more comfortable with you, and again, I think it's better to be transparent about persuasion, which is what Scott Adams does on his YouTube channel, Real Coffee with Scott Adams, where he talks about persuasion and talks about how the news persuades, how the media persuades, how the modern religion of institutions persuade us, as well as everything else. You need to know when to drop a bunt, throw a curve, walk another team, or swing for the fences. So some good persuasion, of course, is also getting people to think, to ask questions, to raise questions, to create an image in their head of a situation, to frame things, and then make us ask questions. If you have any thoughts on persuasion, please do leave them below. I'm still learning every day, and I figure just to get a little bit of a primer on what persuasion's all about would be nice. But I have a lot to learn, so please do leave a comment below. Knowing when to swing for the fences, knowing when it's a good move. This is what 3D and 4D chess are all about, by the way. That's right, folks. 3D and 4D chess, you might have heard those terms. You might be well acquainted with them, but learning this system of the chessboard, of linguistics, of negotiation, learning how to negotiate correctly is a persuasion area. Negotiation, persuasion, they're essentially the same thing. So if you'd like to be a pitching ace, you might not be the best persuader ever, but at least having this tool in your toolbox could help you out. And especially online, trying to make arguments, you want every advantage you can get.